again. This is Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and this evening we have a very special guest with us, Monica Jaye. And you might know her voice, but you might not know her in person. So we'll see. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors so much. Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, balsamic vinegar, and international teas, as well as Vila Basque Deli and Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo. So I welcome you to our show tonight, and let's turn to Monica and meet Monica. Monica, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You know, we are all accustomed to that voice of yours on the radio. And
you sure it's the voice and not the laugh?
It goes together.
Okay.
One just blends with the other, okay, constantly. But it's a pleasure not only to have you here, but also to share your life as much as you are comfortable in doing with the listening audience. And the purpose of Women to Women is always to encourage other women out there that regardless right now of their circumstances or their age, where they are in their walk in life, not to give up.
I love that.
But to absolutely know that there's a purpose in our lives, and sometimes it takes us a while to discover what that purpose or purposes can be, but it's there. And not to think for a moment that after we reach 50 or we reach 40 or we reach 35, that we're over the hill. The best is yet to come in terms of our learning, in terms of our sharing, and I'm looking forward to the wisdom that you have acquired in some of the areas of work, some of the challenges that you faced, because it's not easy to be in the entertainment industry. It's not easy to be on radio. It's not easy to be on television. There's a certain amount of privacy that's taken away from you. But let's start out
Have you been talking to my husband?
No! But I have one who can also explain to that too. Okay. Monica, let's start out. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? How did you get into Reno?
I actually was born and raised in Redding, California, along with my husband as well.
Okay.
And I was always petrified because, you know, they say you're going to marry a man or you find your spouse in the industry that you work in. When I discovered the love of radio, I thought, I don't want to marry another DJ. This is too much. But I was actually working in family planning when I just got was kind of tired and burnt out on it, and I was sitting around talking with my mom one day. She's the greatest inspiration of my life, such a strong woman, and she got that from my grandmother. And she has a wonderful voice, and she was a dispatcher for the police department, and I kind of toyed around with that. Thought, well, maybe I'd like to be a dispatcher, and learning all those codes and everything, that was just too much for me. That was too constrictive, and I won't even tell you about the story that somebody said I should be in phone sex one time, but we
in phone sex.
In phone sex.
Let's
yes.
skip that, and let me bring up another subject. We may get to that later, though. Okay, Monica, what was it like growing up in California when you were a kid? What was in? What was out? Who did you listen to? Was your ear to the radio at a very early age?
It really wasn't. I remember not really even becoming interested in radio until I lived in Southern California.
And how did that happen?
My mother's job took us down there for a while, and I just remember, and I was probably about 10, 11, getting sucked into that pop music, you know, and it was Easy 101,
yes,
KEZY down there. That was just what I listened to constantly, and you know, I turned that radio off, and you know, I had David Cassidy, and you know,
okay, that's right, Partridge Family.
Yeah, that was my time, and I loved the music. It made me happy, and at the time, my parents were going through a divorce, and so anything that made me happy at that point
was an escape from that reality.
Yeah, it was an escape from that. So,
do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have an older brother.
All right. Is he also in the entertainment industry?
Oh, goodness, no. He's in prison. So,
all right.
Our paths couldn't be further apart.
So you had some challenges as a young woman, as a young girl growing up. How important were friends to you at that point?
Not much so. I was pretty much a loner at that time because we moved around in the 7 years that we lived in Southern California. We moved 9 times. So it was very hard yeah, as soon as I would make a friend, I would leave them because we would go live someplace else.
And as
I
a
would be away
teacher,
from
I
them.
saw that happen with some of my students, and my heart always hurt for that set of circumstances.
Yeah.
Now, what were some of the challenges, besides making friends and leaving friends? How did that affect your education, or didn't it?
It affected my education in the sense that I never felt complete with the courses that I was taking. As an example, I was put into basic math in one school. I would move, and they'd say, "Oh, well, you got A's in this, so we're going to put you into pre-algebra, but the pre-algebra is already halfway through the semester, so I would fail that, and so the next place they would put me back into basic because I failed the so it was very hard on my education to be moving around to different schools.
Were your parents able to help you in making those adjustments academically, or did you pretty much have to rely upon yourself to say, "Oh, wow"?
Well,
what do I need to do here?
My father at the time was pretty much out of the picture because of the fact of they were going through a divorce. But my mom, she tried to help me as much as she could, but unfortunately, as I had said earlier, she was a dispatcher, and she usually had the graveyard shift. And so when I would see her, in the afternoons or in the evenings, she tried to spend as much time with me as she could. But my brother and I were pretty self-reliant. And, unfortunately, I was more reliant on myself because my brother was off doing other things yeah.
So there's a certain toughness that's in you, Monica, from your childhood, things that you had to deal with earlier than some other same-age friends or same-age acquaintances than you. And I think, we carry part of that childhood and part of the lessons that we learn and how to become self-sufficient right into our adulthood as well. Have you found that to be true or not?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Can you help us understand?
I look at my past and I think, and with the teachings of my mother, being self-reliant, being able to make my own decisions, make my own mistakes, and grow from that.
Yes.
Sometimes you grow, sometimes in other family members' case, you don't.
Right, and sometimes we take a step backward until we learn where in that area of our stepping do we need to just take time out, evaluate what we've done, and then we'll move ahead again.
Yeah.
But evaluation time is important in there.
Yeah, and my mom gave me that ear to talk out those decisions that I was making and that I would have to make in the future if there were consequences involved. And
Did you talk them out with her?
Yeah, I talked them out with her, and she was, always very much putting me in the understanding that, well, you need to make this decision. I can't make this for you. I can guide you on a path, but it wasn't really a parental attitude of punish you for doing something.
Let's learn from this, Monica.
Exactly. You learn from your mistakes and where you want to go. And
she was really partnering with you for so many things.
Oh, very much so. I have a very hard time describing her as my mother because I describe her as my best friend.
Yes.
Kids in high school thought I was weird because, I can't wait to go home and tell my mom, or, my mom's going to, we're going to go do this. Or, and it's like, your mom? Why would you want to hang out with your mom? And I was like, because I love her, and she has been such a great inspiration. I mean, even to this day, my husband, he had to back off a little bit on me because I wanted to take my mom and dad on my honeymoon. He was like, come on, it'll be more fun, we'll have a whole bunch of people. And they vacation with us all the time.
Okay.
And fortunately, my dad turned his life around, so they're back together.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I've gotten to see changes that way too.
Isn't it interesting? God gave you exactly the parents that you needed to have, especially the mother.
Yeah.
In your life.
Oh, yes.
You can look back and see that.
Well, and my grandmother, I think, because she learned that from my grandmother. I was thinking about moving in with a boyfriend at the time, and she was like, my grandmother was, live with him. Find out what it's like. If you don't like him, then get rid of him. You don't want to marry him first. And I'm like, Grandma, everybody else would say, oh, no, you can't live with somebody before you get married. And, my grandmother was like, no, find out what it's like before. Okay.
And she's still alive?
No, my grandmother's passed away, unfortunately, but my mother is still, my mom's pushing 70. So I've always been very proud of my age, and I think that was another thing that I learned from my mother. I've never had more than one 29th birthday or more than,
Yes.
it's just, I announce on the air all the time how old I am.
Well, the audience knows that I'm 69, and I think there's a lot to be said for being able to age gracefully and to recognize we have a culture, we have a society that has focused for so many generations on youth. And in the process, somewhere there has been a big disconnect, a big separation between what 45 and after or 50 and after can actually offer and give and share in the way of those nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, I have 45 years of, like you just said, wisdom. And I don't think I would go back and change a thing because I'm so happy where I'm at right now. If I changed one little thing in the past, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
True, true. And I think it takes an inner strength and an inner confidence to be able to say, okay, here I am at 69, here I am at 60, I'm at 50. Would I want to go back and be 20 or 25 again? No, thank you. Because you can look back and see what it was like at 20 or 25 or even 30, and you're so much, you're into your shoes, you're into your clothes, and the things that used to bother you then, they do not bother you anymore.
I remember the tears when I was 25. I remember, the heartaches. I remember the jobs not working out, and I wouldn't go back and change a thing.
Well, Monica, help us to understand, before you came into Reno on radio, what were you doing? What were some of the jobs that you were doing before?
Well,
fortunately, preparing you. Okay.
Nothing prepared me for this.
Really?
I come from such different. My parents owned an automotive shop, or my grandparents owned it, and my mother was the general manager, and my uncle worked there, and my brother worked there at times, and so I was a parts runner, and I would go.
You can change tires.
I can change a tire. Shh, don't tell my husband that. I can do a whole lot of things. I can check my own oil. I can, I know where the spark plugs are. But that led me into dealing with people, and, I've always been a character. I've always been quick on my feet. And I think being raised around, I know this is women to women, but being raised around men and mechanics. And they always knew that if they told a joke in front of me, they didn't have to clean it up or, and I would give it back to them just as they gave it to me. And so I think being raised around that automotive field, and my dad used to build Jeeps from the ground up. So I was always amongst that atmosphere that kind of gave me that toughness as well.
But you haven't lost your sense of femininity at all.
No, and I credit my mom with that. I'm definitely a girly girl. But then after that, I went into family planning, and I worked in family planning for a number of years. I was about 4.5, 5 years, and was doing a lot of problem pregnancy counseling, and just, when you're working in a state agency like that, nobody wants to be pregnant. So a lot of tears, a lot of stress, giving them their options. And then, so many of the girls just felt that was the end. And I didn't want to do that anymore. That I just felt that, because I'm a very mirrored person. If you're in pain, then I'm in pain. If you're sad, then I'm sad. And
you really soak up what's happening.
Yeah, I felt that was really draining me, and I wanted something happy. I wanted something fun. And in talking with my mom, again, she felt that I had the personality for other things. So we actually had a radio station owner, small town. He also sold advertising as well. So she said, well, why don't you give Craig a call and talk to him, and called him up and said, oh, you've got a great voice, call my program director. And I called and talked to him, and I was hired on the spot.
And we're going to come right back to that part of your life, okay, very quickly. Don't go away. Welcome again. We're back in the second half of our show with Monica Jaye. It's a pleasure to have you, Monica, as always.
Thank you so much.
You are more than welcome. It's also a pleasure just to have someone with me, as most women are, but we are feeling our age in a good way. We're feeling our experience in a good way. And we hope that's conveyed to our listening audience that it often takes many circumstances, many journeys, many paths before we fall into the place where we really feel that our life is making a difference for others. And I think Monica has found that place. She shared with us at the end of the first half that she had worked on family planning, and she became so absorbed in each individual young woman's life that it was taking everything from her. So she also feels that there were circumstances, including her mother, grandmother, that eventually led her to radio. So we're at radio now.
Now
Monica.
we're at radio.
Okay.
But going back to the age thing, I do want
Yes.
to share with you that age and maturity have nothing to do with each other.
You're right. You're right.
I think the more immaturity that I have, the younger it keeps me, actually.
Oh, no. I'm working with a dichotomy here. Well, I tell you what, Monica, it's not easy to work in a field where men have mostly dominated for so many years, so many generations.
And they still do.
And they still do. Help us to understand what it takes. Okay, you have shared that in your father's car business, mechanical, automotive parts, that you worked with men, and they talked to you almost like a buddy, okay? And you could give it right back to them.
But I do want to correct you on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's my grandfather's automotive
Oh, your
business.
grandfather's.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So you had communication with men growing up in your lifetime. Now, did that make a difference when you entered the world of radio?
Oh, I think so. Because
How so?
pretty much for the fact that I can play with the boys. You know, I can be a girly girl and be sensitive, but if somebody says something around me, I don't get my feelings hurt. I don't get that, oh, I can't believe you said that. And, you know, there's not going to be any sexual harassment lawsuits. There's not going to be any, you know, embarrassing situations. It's just, I feel that everybody actually that goes into the world of radio that I've ever worked with, we all seem to have the same temperament. And you can tell when an outsider comes in, because that's when people get offended at the drop of a hat, or it's like, really, you know, there are sometimes you have to be able to say what you're thinking, or I mean, obviously not completely vulgar, but I think that the world of PC has just gone way too far. And all of the gentlemen that I work with, and they truly are gentlemen. You know?
They seem to be. I listen to them on the air, and I like their responses. I like the way they treat you as a woman.
Yeah, they treat me not only as a woman, but really, even our age differences, they treat me as an equal. And I think that's why I have been, you know, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but successful in the position that I'm in. And without the guys I work with, because really, even today, women are leaving our industry every day.
All right, now this intrigues me. Why would women be leaving? Because you think they can't take the heat?
I don't think that it's that they can't take the heat. It's, for the most part, the industry is becoming so small that unless you have the years of experience, unless you have the, not even so much the connections, you have to have the talent to be able to carry you through it.
Right.
That a lot of women are just going into other things.
All right, so they are downsizing, sometimes the studios, the number of employees, losing ground, in your opinion, to what?
Technology.
Okay.
You know.
But I would come back, Monica, and say, okay, all right, technology is out there. It's a very popular culture. But what can take the place, really, when you think about it, of just good debating, good talking, good bouncing ideas off of a guest or a number of guests? How can you give up that kind of conversation between people? Conversation is so important. Debate is so important.
Personally, I don't think you can. But in an industry where I can sit down and voice track for 5 different radio stations in one day, or even stations across the country, then why would a company hire new people, new ideas, when the bottom line says, let's just stick her in a studio, she's got a great voice, let's just let her voice track all these songs. The only time And even some stations don't even do it, but the only time you're really going to hear interaction is on either news talk or during morning shows. And even
On both television and radio.
on both television and radio, but there are some radio stations that are actually getting away from that too. Some music stations are just, they're going, you'll hear longer music sets, just one person running the show. And that's where I got my start. Even though I was on the music side, I was the person reading the news. I was the person that was throwing in the fun remarks or the, gasps of, surprise. But until I got my chance at the original K-Winds, back when it was 97.3, what a heritage that was. I was the first female morning show host on that station. It was owned by a woman, and she gave me a chance, and
Great.
I was
Great.
thrilled with that.
How many years have you been with KOH?
With KOH, I am very proud to say that Ross and I have been together for 12 and a half years. It'll be
Great.
13 in November. Yeah.
Wow. That is an accomplishment. That's a great accomplishment. What do you think about, Monica, what goes through your head when the news comes in tomorrow morning and are you expected to make any comments? Are you expected to make any discussion about it? How do you handle that? There are just some things that would get me riled.
Boy, that's a toughie because it's all in who you ask. My listeners expect me to make comments. My boss expects me to be quiet, just read the news, the way that it's written and the way that it's supposed to be delivered and not do editorializing. There are a group of people that don't want to hear my insertions. There are people who do want to hear them because they think, and that's the greatest compliment that I get is when someone comes up to me and says, "I'm so glad you said that. That is exactly what I was thinking." But they don't have the voice to say it, but I do.
So this leads me into the question: how much of your day or week, how much of your work schedule goes into reading, keeping up to date with the news from various newspapers, from various sources? How important is that for hosting a morning program?
It depends on how far you want to go into the news. I just recently returned from Germany, and I was so impressed with watching the BBC and watching some international programs that they didn't get into all the fluff. You didn't hear about celebrities. You heard news from around the world and what was going on, and I really enjoyed that. I spend usually the better part of the afternoon during my downtime watching various network shows and seeing what other people are talking about. I like to surf the internet for a little while, but I like to also shut down in the evening, and I watch a lot of animation. I like to escape into something else because, again, it goes back to when I was working at family planning. There's a time where you just have to shut it off, and I absorb too much. It's the same thing for everybody when we went through 9/11. There's just a time that you have to turn off the images, and because the story isn't really developing anymore. You can only hear the same story over and over so many times.
There's a choice. How much do our viewers need to hear and see? And how much do we need to keep until we have the actual facts? We're going through that now from Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah. But again, though, that's the decision I want to make.
Okay.
I was very upset when, especially after 9/11, that people came forward and said, okay, the networks need to stop showing this. No, when I've had enough, I'll stop watching. Don't
You want to make that choice.
I want to make that choice.
Right.
Don't deny me information because you think it's bad for me.
Right. That's encroaching on our personal thinking, our personal rights. And I agree with you on that. We can always click a radio, click a television station off.
If you don't like what you hear, that's your choice. And that's what I say to my critics who don't like my laugh in the morning. They think I'm too cheery. They don't like my comments about certain senators, or they don't like my comments about the current administration. Well, you have other options.
Right. Right.
I hate to lose you as a listener, but I'm not going to change who I am and what I'm doing and what I get the most feedback that people enjoy because you can't handle it.
Is there a life for Monica and her husband besides KOH?
Very little. You know, we have things that we enjoy doing. I throw myself into the Nevada Humane Society. I'm on their board of directors, and I love what I do with them. And
Which is what?
I'm the vice president of the board, and we fostered animals before, and just going in and educating people.
You have a real big heart.
About what the Humane Society does. And I enjoy that, and I love sharing that. And it's the same with guns. I do the same for the Friends of the NRA. I do quite a bit for them. And if it's not at KOH, it's my charity work, and fortunately my husband believes pretty much in everything I believe in, so he's right there with me.
It's really a good matching, isn't it?
It really is.
Between a male and a female.
We're partners, and that we knew that from the very beginning, that we're partners.
Does your husband have emotional, well, of course he has emotional investment in KOH. Does he work for the station at all?
Actually, he's one of the corporate engineers for the company that we work for. I mean, the only reason that I am actually working at KOH is because he suggested it. We talked about radio, we live radio, and he said, well, you know, really the future is news talk. And I know you love what you do, and you love to talk, and you love that morning show, and the whole aspect of playing off of somebody else. And he said, you know, you and Ross would be great together because you're already friends, you know, so why not apply for the morning show opening? And I did, and they welcomed me with open arms, and I really credit him for guiding me in that path, because it's the music stations that have a tendency to do more voice tracking, and you'll hear the same person. You know, if a company owns 4 or 5 stations, you'll hear them on all of them. So my husband's been there from the beginning, but even though he travels, even though he has to go to all of these different locations and help with other stations, he's always there for me for the big events, you know, the Star Spangled Sparks and the 4th of July. He's right there helping with the equipment. The balloon races, you'll see him right there behind me running all of all the equipment. So he likes that personal side too.
Yeah, you're kind of the showmanship side of it, and he is the wings on which you ride.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. He's my strength.
Well, Monica, before we close the second half, I think women, any of our listeners, are encouraged by the tenacity that it takes, the feistiness, and the determination. What is probably the most challenging professional set of circumstances you've had to come through?
Knowing when to keep my mouth shut.
Oh, that's a biggie for all of us. You probably hit the nail on the head for all of us listening.
Yeah, there's, you know, there is a whole group of people out there that, Chick-fil-A is an example. Somebody high up in their leadership passed away, and people were applauding the fact that he did. You know, and there's that group of people out there that just want to create havoc and throw their opinions out, and that's the time I need to step away and keep my mouth shut, because there's a dignity.
That's right.
That, you know, you can have your own opinions, you can have your own thoughts, but there still has to be a respectfulness about it.
Absolutely.
And
thank you for bringing that up.
You know, it's my pleasure. Everybody has a voice. You just have to know when to use it.
And besides thanking Monica one last time, it was really special to talk to you and to hear different sides, of the entertainment industry. And for our viewers out there, if you'd like to contact us, we're at facebook.com/women-to-women-NV. So we will see you next week with a brand new guest. In the meantime, have a wonderful week. Stay safe. We've loved having you. Good night.